can get his budget bylaw ready for first reading in January. Okay, so we'll go through grants, we'll go through program changes and the supplemental requests, and then Jim will take you through the capital. If there is anything that we took out during budget meeting, I don't think we took out any program changes. We took out a few of the grants. If there is something that you want back in, then you have to make that proposal to your colleagues around the table, and we can vote on that. But we want to lock down those, and then we'll go through the program changes. And if there is something, because nothing was taken out the first time we went through them, if there is anything that is suspect in there that you want further consideration on, somebody's got to make the motion to take it out of the budget. We can discuss it, and then the group can decide what they want to do with it. And then we'll go through the capital, do the same thing. Before the end of the day, and we won't go past 3, but if we get done earlier, then we can adjourn earlier. But want to get into then the regional programs, the sub-regional, the shared. Most of those are the big ones. The local programs that are just specific to one electoral area, I think most of the directors have worked that out with Jim. And if we get into some of the bigger programs, fine. If not, we'll just leave it at that level, and Jim can make the changes and bring that back at first reading, and then we can determine whether we want to proceed on that. Any questions before we start?
Seeing no hands.
Okay, so Jim's going to bring up his slide deck that he's got ready for today. And can you go right to that slide, one slide with all the grants on it, Jim? Yeah, I think you passed it there. No, yeah. Okay, so this is what we did at budget meeting number 1. Naramata Center Society, they were looking for a grant for their summer concert series. We took that out. Okay, so that is not proposed for funding right now. And again, always on the concept, if you want these, you got to buy them. Okay, and then Jim will put them in the budget. The Ha 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 Kids Fest, it did better than you. They asked for $5,000, and we want to give them $5,000. Community Wellness Circle Society, they asked for $5,250, and we want to give that to them. The South Okanagan, and Director Weeb, you declared on this one last time, South Okanagan Immigrant and Community, so just don't say anything. Okay.
Unless it becomes a discussion.
Yeah, and then you'll have to remove yourself. They wanted $3,500, and we are prepared to give them $3,500. The Okanagan Similkameen Conservation Alliance, see, make sure I'm on the right column here. Yeah, so the Conservation Alliance, they asked for the Immigrant Society asked for 7. We were going to give them 35. The Immigrant and Community Services Society asked for 7. We approved 35. The Conservation Alliance asked for 7,500, and we were looking at 3,500. Okay, and that's Meadowlark. And then there was also some suggestion, and that was it. The other ones, Okanagan School of the Arts, Apex Freestyle Snowboard, Penticton Art Gallery had made requests, and they were all taken out. So right now we're looking at 4 grants that total $17,250. So that's the Kids Fest, the Wellness Circle Society, Immigrant Community Services, and Conservation Alliance. Anybody want to make any changes to what we had proposed at budget meeting number 1? Or need more description on it?
For those online, if you can raise a hand, I can't see everybody with the slide deck up. So raise a hand and it should bring you up on the top. So did you have something, Director Roberts?
Make sure I hit the right button here. I was wanting to propose 3,000 for the community wellness instead of the 5,250.
Community wellness.
And that was part of the presentation and the work that was going in regards to postpartum.
Postpartum
very
support. Yes.
Very good situation, but just again, thinking where we're at and the amount of money that might be an appropriate number.
So you're making a motion for, what was it, 33,000?
Not 33,000.
No, 3,000.
3,000.
Okay, 3,000 and it's seconded. Anybody have anything to say about that before we? Director Miller had a hand. I don't see it up there now, but you're okay. Director Holmes, go ahead.
This one is. So I think if we're looking to reduce the total amount, having already had a kick at all these, rather than, pick this one or pick that one for a reduction amount, maybe if we were looking to reduce amount, we should just decide how much we want to reduce the total to, 10% or whatever, and just skim 10% off all four. That would be my approach if we're looking to, if we think 17.25 is too much, but we could always do that later in the process to see where we're at overall. So,
okay, that's a good suggestion. Anything else from anybody before I call the question on that?
Yes. I'm here.
Director Bush.
Yeah.
I can hear you, but I can't see you. So there you are. Now your hand's up and you showed up. Go ahead.
So this is the one I thought we should pay the full amount, but I do agree with Director Holmes. If we're going to cut any at all, then we should do it fairly. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments? For those online, speak up if I'm not capable of seeing everybody. Okay, there is the motion on the floor to cut that to 3,000. So I'll ask for a show of hands for those in favor of doing that. We've got several. Those opposed to making that cut. Looks like the motion is defeated. Okay, so it will stay at 5, I think is what we have it at this point. 52.50, okay. Unless there's something else.
Any of the other grants that anybody wants to talk about?
Go ahead, Director Roberts.
In regards to follow-up from Director Holmes, how about, since we're looking at the other ones at 3,500, what about dropping all down to 3,500 and just keeping it fair and equitable?
Go ahead, Director Holmes.
Yeah.
is that a motion, or we're just throwing that as?
Well, let's throw it
a
out there.
discussion. I think we discussed all of these pretty thoroughly last time, and there's a reason why we cut those two down, and the other two, which we didn't cut down, they weren't for the same reasons. So I really don't see the purpose of pulling out one or two of them, and either we want to reduce the total budget, then I say do it for all of them, or we don't want to reduce, or we're happy with that amount, and then let's just leave it. That's the way I look at it.
And it can always be done later. There's always that option, but this will go as it is into the first draft. So Director Roberts, go ahead.
Yeah, just as a follow-up, it's just, trying to initiate discussion, so.
Okay. Seeing a hand from Director Monteith, go ahead.
Through the chair, could we be reminded what we paid last year for regional grant?
Last year was
It was like 25,000, I thought.
No. Go ahead.
Just the Summerland Food Hub alone was 50,000. So it was, I believe, close to 65, 70,000.
Yeah, it was significantly different than this one, so. Okay, seeing no other discussion, we'll move on.
Okay, so we'll lock that in. Let's go then to program changes, Jim. Okay, so these are what we would then consider as the discretionary labor increases. So new positions that we believe would benefit the board. And then you tell us whether you want to buy them or not. So we had a community services administrative assistant. That's one position. Yeah.
Go ahead, Director Conants.
So sorry to interrupt you. I just want to be able to follow this on in my iPad here. So would that be under Appendix 1, staff requests?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Okay. So this is a community services assistant that would sit over in the annex, sort of where the Recreation Parks Department is now. One position estimated at 52,000 for around for 2023. And it's just because of the growth within all of the functions that have occurred over the last couple of years. Anybody need more information on that?
Director Roberts?
Thank you. If we're starting the discussion on this particular role, and looking at the, sorry, to the chair, looking at the org chart and that in regards to administration and the different things we're going, I think really some boots, what boots in the ground in regards to encouraging or increasing a couple of the ones that are already pre-existing, but I don't see right now in regards to the fiscal necessities to have another administrator. That seems to be, to me, from what I was looking at and under the line of roles and responsibilities under recreation, that look like there could be a little sharing between different the different bodies that are under community services at the moment. So that was my opinion. I'm not for this particular position at this moment.
Seeing a hand from Director Federico.
I'm in agreement with Director Roberts there. There's a bit of a financial increase to my budget that just I can't support it this time.
Okay, is someone wanting to make a motion to remove that? Moved. A seconder? Good, it's on the floor. Any discussion on taking this one off? Go ahead, Director Taylor.
So we've got new cemetery facilities as an example.
Yep.
How do we deal with that if we don't, like, who's going to do that work, for example, Okanagan Falls Cemetery, if we don't hire this person?
Well, there's the deal. You get what you pay for. So if something comes up with a cemetery, then we'd have to prioritize and something would drop off the bottom. That's all. Something that we're doing now would drop off. But that's the case that we've been in for a few years now, is that we're prioritizing and either work is dropping off or we're just not doing it well.
Okay. Seeing any hands on the line, I'm not seeing. Go ahead, Director Roberts.
Thank you, the chair. I'm just looking at, like, for instance, in regards to a graveyard, and strange enough, I managed a graveyard at one point in my time, and whether or not it was picking knapweed or mowing the lawn or cleaning the sites. And again, I'm just looking at regards to this cost at this point in time, in regards to, how do we be fiscally responsible and move things around? And again, sometimes can we work with local societies? Like, can we, and this is a question, because I know Right now, in regards to the cemetery I'm dealing with in Headley, there's a Headley Society that looks after it, and I provide a small amount annually, as well as I have a park contribution service, so that the community is looking after their parks, but we are not. So I'm wondering whether or not, are there ways to think outside of the box as we move forward and try to be fiscally responsible? And, and of course, understanding that we don't want things to fall to the wayside, but are there other methods that we can use in the meantime while we're looking at a pretty tight fiscal time?
Well, that wasn't the only project identified as requiring this type of a service, but yeah, you just tell us what you want to pay for, we'll figure out how to do it. But
Yeah.
just let us know what you want to do.
Okay, seeing no other, go ahead, Director Gettens.
Yeah, thanks to the chair. One of the roles of this, or one of the responsibilities of this position is the grants. And I'm curious to know who does the grants now, and because he has been really successful. So if this role doesn't come on, does that impact our grants potential, I guess is the word?
Go ahead, Mr. Woods.
We're very successful at grants, and grants are typically applied for by each department and often a project lead or a program lead. Our admin assistants generally are the ones that do all the paperwork, which more and more and more is becoming increasingly difficult. That's why I called that out as one of the items. So, I think our group's brought in over $3 million in the last couple of years, which thankfully there's a lot of good grants out there. But as I say, grant reporting is becoming a big part of it. So that's part of the strategy here as well. So if you have a higher paid project lead doing the administrative work, that's another factor. And that, because in the end, grant reporting must be done.
As a follow-up, because has there ever been a discussion around a grant expert for the whole organization, not just community services, to see if there's other grants around, like for public works and that kind of thing?
It really has to be the department that has an interest in the grant that has to write it, because they've got all the information and they're familiar with their own programs. So it's better, I think, being done decentralized.
Okay. Director Federico?
Just a commenting on grants. So through our Parks and Rec, we have a grant contractor that will bring in to help with those grants for support to staff if they need that.
Okay, seeing no more discussion, we do have a motion on the floor to take this one out of the budget. I'll call the question. All those in favor of removal? Ooh, looks positive on that one, but those opposed? Director Knodel opposed, and motion carries. He's waving off. I'll call for opposed again.
I wasn't opposed.
Okay, Director Taylor opposed, still motion carries. So we don't need to record the opposed at this point. I don't believe it's just, okay, so it's on at this point. Next.
We had a 0.8 of a full-time equivalent for a recreation facility attendant. And that was estimated at $20,000 for 2023.
Okay. The board's okay with this one, unless I see any hands or hear any voices from offline or online, I should say.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We had a parks, full-time parks facilities attendant estimated at $32,000, but why is that only $32,000?
Go ahead, Director Woods, or Mr. Woods.
Yeah. There's a portion that's coming in from the OKF ID budget. So for this year, it's supplemented by that amount. That's the new workload that's coming in from their parks and facilities.
Okay. Looking if there's a desire to change this one. I'm seeing no hands. Director Gettens?
Sorry, what are we talking about then? Are we talking about the rec coordinator?
Parks facilities attendant.
Okay, so this one is for 74,000.
Facility coordinator.
Well, no, I thought Parks and facility attendant for 74,700, and then I've got a rec coordinator for 32,700.
So this
Which
is
one is
number
it?
4. This is item number 4. So as an FTE, full-time
Okay.
equivalent, next year they'd be 74,000. This year there's allotment of budget coming in from OFID that
Okay.
will fund a portion of it. So it's really just showing you the first year at the 32.
Yeah.
So continuing on at this FTE level, 74,000. So what we've got here is a accumulation of services that this particular position will work within. And it corresponds with the supplementary increase, which is also coming later, which is the operations line. So when we have new items come in, new capital items, bathrooms, pathways, whatnot, this is the supplemental work that comes with it for the most part.
Okay. I'm not sure I see it on that screen either, but
I don't see it on mine. I'm trying to follow. Is it on this slide?
no, it's not.
Supplemental, if you scroll down. There's a better breakdown.
Just the one that's 32.
Does it follow this?
No.
To the chair?
You still can't find it.
Do you want to explain that, Jim? Is there some discrepancy there?
There's annual income each year from
Yeah.
OFID, and it's not just this year, it's
Go ahead.
for an extended period of time, I think.
So if I may, so it is number 4. What it's saying, it's the total cost would be 74,750 for the wages. However, the net amount is 32,319 because if you look at the screen and also on the report, there are some money that is recouped from this position.
Yes.
So the net amount against the budget is 32,000. However, the way the system works, we're going to show you what the total cost would be once the revenues aren't included.
And
So-
that's what they're having trouble seeing is where that total amount is.
So if you look at the report on number 4, you'll see the 74,750. But if you look on the right, there's columns that says year 1, year 2, et cetera.
Okay.
Under year 1, you'll see the 32,000 because there's actually some negatives in there. Revenue coming back into the organization.
Yeah. I've got it. Having trouble following. Director Taylor, you got a hand up? Go ahead.
That's all.
Yeah, I mean, if you go down to the subsequent table, which isn't probably in this PowerPoint, but if you go down to the subsequent table that describes the position in more detail, there's offsetting income from OFID, Okanagan Falls Irrigation District. My question is, for clarity, you've said that that's this year. My understanding is that it's each of the next 5 years. So the net for this position is not just 32 for next year, it's basically 32 or 35 for the foreseeable future because there's offset from OFID.
That's correct. So I'm just saying on the 32, that's for this year, but it does carry forward ongoing.
Yeah, maybe we just work with the cost of the position is the 72,000.
Not all.
No, that'll be where
It's
they.
broken
work, so
down
it'll
as
be-
who pays on there. Yeah. Majority is electoral areas except for a couple.
It'll
Maybe.
be our Parks and Recreation Services.
Yeah.
Spread across them. Director Gettens has her hand up, I'm sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Director
thanks,
Gettens.
Chair. So for this one, because it increases the area of Parks and Recreation budget, and we've already got a pretty big increase, I can't add more to that Parks and Rec budget. So, but I'm only 4% of this person. So I just want to say that if it's important to other people, you can always take that from me, but I don't want to increase our Parks and Rec budget anymore because we've already got an increase.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
Yeah,
Not yet?
no.
No, there's no motion.
It was a few questions. So we're Director Fedrigo?
So if we don't accept this position, what happens with the OFID funding?
Well, the OFID funding right now is a bill for the forest services that Okanagan Falls Irrigation District offers. So cemetery, Centennial Park, mostly the water service, and then what's the street lights,
Yeah,
which is really a
lighting.
contract with Fortis. So if we aren't providing us, I mean, when we send out the utility bill in the future, it will just be for the water service, right?
Okay. So is this being left then? Director Monteith, go ahead.
To the chair.
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious to a park attendant position, but with recreation wages. How are they connected?
Mr. Woods?
That's a naming convention within our finance system. Our services are called certain things. Some of the parks and rec services are referred to as recreation services. It's within one bundle of service though, parks and rec. So when that comes up, it comes right out of Jim's financial system as what it's called. So it's a bit confusing.
Okay. Did I see a hand from Director Weeb?
To the chair, just a quick question, because it looks like, so that I'm familiar with how we're doing what we're doing, that there are obviously, OK Falls. Sorry, I can't see your name tag. I know who you are though.
Director Taylor.
I know your first name, Director Taylor. But would it be typical of us to, because this would seem to be not quite region specific, but kind of region specific, that would be more kind of follow their lead? Like I'm just, because I mean, obviously, I mean, I'm involved, with the all parts, but it looks like this is something that significantly affects Director Taylor. And so I'm just trying to get a read on the kind of how you guys typically do what we're doing to, well, let's say it this way, to learn how to play along. So,
Well, it's usually those that are paying that are most interested, but you all vote.
Yeah. Okay. Seeing Director Taylor.
Yeah, just to your point, and to my comment earlier, the work's got to get done. And at least 50% of this is borne by Okanagan Falls Cemetery and Okanagan Falls Recreation, but offset by OFID income. So at least 50% of this job was being done before. I just don't see how we can get away from not doing it, at least at the start. So from my perspective, I would motion that we keep this in for now. And if we need to trim something later, we can look at it, but this isn't an incremental
Unless
piece
someone's
of
going to
work.
remove it, we're looking for a motion to remove, or we'll just leave it because it is in right now.
It is not in. You have to
Well,
buy it.
temporary, it's in from our last meeting. If we want it removed,
Yeah,
we're looking for a motion to remove, or it's staying on.
yeah.
Okay, that's the way we're gonna do it, just for ease of, because they're already there right now, not in the budget, but they're gonna be. So
What do you want to do with this?
it's staying. Nobody's making a motion, so let's move on.
Okay. Then we have the recreation coordinator, and that's a .4 full-time equivalent. And this is, I think, mostly Naramata. Yeah.
So I will go to Director
like-
Fredrigo.
To motion to remove, please.
Motion to remove. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded. Any discussion needed on this? Director Knodel, I see a hand waving. You're okay?
Just seconding.
Just seconding it? No problem. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing no hands, I'll call the question. All in favor of removal? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next.
This is a full-time position for our information services department, and we have two on the list. Well, this one is an information services tech, so this is the computer, hardware, software, communications, all of that type of activity. The second one is a geographic information system, and we're asking for 2 positions, 1 for each side of that department. So this one is just on the information services part.
Okay. So unless someone wants to take this one out, I'll give you a couple of seconds to raise a hand, or we'll move on to the next. Seeing no hands, move on to the next one.
Okay, so this is then the Geographic Information System Analyst position. And it is a full-time position as well.
Okay. Same deal here. Director Roberts, go ahead.
Can we just have a clarity again in regards to what this role provides? Like, I know it's important, but I just for my own sake.
Go, Danny.
I'll do it from here. Yes, so the GIS system, the board, if it's not aware, we've also taken on a new asset management system, which is heavily involved with the GIS system as well. So with the extra load of the asset management system coming on board, as well as the more demand for GIS services, we've put forward this proposal for an analyst for the GIS services.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not seeing any hands to come up on a motion for this.
Okay.
Move on.
We have a request for 1 full-time engineering technology, and that is in the solid waste department.
Okay. Not seeing any hands again here. Director Holmes, go ahead.
Yeah, just in terms of the solid waste management wages and that everybody pays for it, that's presumably because they're going to be doing something with the regional solid waste management. I mean, how does that? Why is everybody paying for that portion of it?
I've got that just for our. There is a small part in there for general government, but it's very small. It's mostly just the capital projects that we're doing at the landfills. So organic processing and treatment facility, the leachate management project. We're doing all of that master planning for the 4 landfills. We're doing design closure operation plans for the 4 landfills. We need a new scale access egress at Campbell Mountain to try and reduce the lines. All of that is the majority of that position.
Okay, so why is it all rather than participant?
Mr. Safino, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
You're pointing at you. We've got a number of programs that are also related generally. So we've got illegal dumping as well. So there's a small piece that's identified. So we have the solid waste management planning, which affects all levels of government. And this position will help. We have to rewrite the plan, then we have to do ongoing maintenance of that plan as well. So those are sort of the 2 things. Next year, we're planning on a major rewrite of the solid waste management plan, and that's legislated.
For that, though, would that not be participants who pay for the solid waste management plan?
It's everybody.
It's everybody.
Okay. So go ahead, Director Holmes.
Okay, if my memory serves me correct, we budgeted for that last year, and so this will be that work will be. It looks like roughly 20% of that person's job, because it looks like 22,000 of the 100 that would be paid by everybody.
Yeah. So we have 1 Edge Tech in solid waste now, and they're looking for another one at a cost of 103,000.
Okay.
All right. Seeing no more hands, unless there's somebody making a motion, we'll move on to the next one. Okay, move on.
Okay. This is in our utilities department, and this is the proposal for 3 summer students at a cost of $45,000.
Okay, so that's 15 per student. Go ahead, Director Roberts.
Thank you to the chair. Does these, or as these roles are roll out and you make sure that they've got there's cost to them, are they positions that we try to get grants for, or are they a part of those different summer grants? Just a question. So,
Yeah, we always apply broadly for grants. They're competitive, so you don't always get them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have to budget for them if we want them, for sure. May not use it if we're lucky enough to get grants, but. Director Gettins.
Thanks to the chair. I thought I saw somewhere a carry forward amount for the Bear Aware program. And I just don't know this student will be doing anything with that carry forward.
Go ahead.
Yes, we're carrying over. We didn't spend all of the funds this
We
year in
went green again,
2022, so
Daniel.
we're using that to help offset the student.
Director Federico?
And wages that come out of here are user fee, so those wouldn't be tax rect then? For for our Naramata water system, then it would come out of
Correct.
user fees, okay.
Okay, just for those online, our screens have went blank on us, so you're gonna have to give me a shout if there's something you wanna make a motion or speak to something. But this was for the summer students, and unless there's a motion, I think we'll move on to the, oh, go ahead, Director Conan.
Sorry, I'm having a little trouble following it. I'm sorry. Where I can't see where it says who's paying for this.
Utilities, wastewater, and Bear Aware.
No, what areas?
Anybody that participates in any of those services. If it's a water service, if it's a wastewater service, or
The RDOS water services or
Okay.
wastewater.
I see. So, okay, so Penticton isn't then.
No.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll keep it on.
Okay. The next one is an accounting clerk too. And I don't know, the slide says we're requesting a 0.5, but it says increase by 1 FTE. So I'm not sure what that is.
Go ahead, Mr. Safina.
And it's typo, it's a 0.5, and it would be, if the screen was working, it would say that it would be charged to all of the areas, so like general government and electoral area. It's a combination of both.
Okay. Again, I'm not seeing any hands.
Keep going.
Keep going.
Okay, so that is all I've got on the program changes. So there were some supplemental requests as well, meaning discretionary additions to service that aren't wages. We went through those last time as well. So we can quickly scan through those. One was a parks and facilities service level increase, and that was estimated at $90,000, and it would be charged to various recreation services, the campground, trails program, etc.
Okay, Director Federico?
So my understanding under supplemental, if it's for our area, we can ask to be removed from it. Clarification on that?
Well, I think you'd treat it holistically, because if one party moves out of the asked to not be included, then those other ones pay for it. So you have to look at the impact of that.
Okay, Director Roberts?
Thanks. And it looks like the lion's share of this is to support recreation in Okanagan Falls. And then next up, of course, is regional trails, which has got a lot of work going. So I'm in support of this one continuing.
Director Federico?
I'm not in support of this one just because that's the items listed for area are just not ones that I can support.
Okay. Director Gettins?
It's the same for me. Again, my parks recreation budget, I'm trying to keep it in the other direction, so I can't support this one either.
Unless someone's willing to make a motion to take it out.
I'll make a motion to remove it.
A motion to remove. Is there a seconder? Seconded. Any discussion on that? We've heard a little bit. Those online, If you have anything to say, please speak up, but otherwise I'm going to Director Taylor.
I'll be voting in support of this for the time being.
To keep it on? Yeah, okay. Seeing no more discussion, there is the motion to take it out. So those in favor of removal? Okay, thank you. Those opposed to removal? And I'm not sure how, the ones in the boardroom, it would carry, but I don't know what's happening offline.
Yeah.
Or online. This makes it a little more complicated. Could I ask
So
those
I've
online,
seen-
are you
Director
in
Bush
favor
and
of removal, a
Director
yay or a
Nodal were
nay?
against. I said Director Bush and Director Nodal were voted against.
Okay, you're voting against? All right, well, it would still then
Yeah, I
stay
vote
on at this
against,
point.
I vote against, Mark.
Okay, thank you.
I vote against as well. Chair.
Against, this is against the removal, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay. So it stays on
Stays
for the
on?
time being,
Okay.
till we see it at first draft and all get sticker shock. Go ahead, Director Gettins.
So on that point, if E and F don't want to be a part of this, how do we get out of it?
That's a question I can't answer.
You'd make another motion when it comes for first reading
What motion?
to take out, to take out the additional service.
So it's all or nothing. So I can't say on behalf of the citizens in Area F, we don't want to pay this extra amount because more people want to keep it in. So Area F has to participate. Like I can't just remove my part. Is that that's what I want clarity on, is if E and F want out and how do we get out?
Yeah.
And then who's willing to pay more to make that happen?
Can I see Mr. Woods standing up to shaking his head here, so maybe explain it?
So this is a new way of doing this. Traditionally, we've had each individual budget, and what we've done is grouped all the supplemental increases. So CAO is correct. This is really all the extra work within my team. Historically, and you're going to continue to look at your individual budgets. So as long as everyone's in agreement, if one of these comes down, we just won't do that work in that service area. So different to the FTEs where we have an aggregate of a bunch of work for a person, this is the specific operational lines within your budget. So top dressing, grass, those types of things. Those are additional new items that have been asked for us to do, or we need to do them to keep up. So if they don't go into a specific budget, we will not show up to do it there.
So they can remove it
Well, again,
individually.
this is a new process, having these supplementals come in one group.
Yeah.
So historically, we're just talking with individual directors and saying, where do you want to be with your operational lines?
Yeah. So at this stage, if they want to take their area out of that and not have extra work done, they should be able to.
Okay, well, Jim, you can work with that. You'll have to reshuffle the costs. What are the staff that we're planning on doing that work going to do?
All the other work. Like these are the extra ads that have been coming in, and I talked about it earlier. These are, when you build a new asset, we have to look after it. So some of these are very specific. Some of this is extra work that we're realizing is coming in from additional public use.
What I would suggest is that the individual directors who are thinking about removal maybe need to have a meeting with staff to see what they're actually talking about removing, and then make that motion in the future to get excluded if they so desire.
Okay. Well, I think we've done that. So it's just West Bench and Naramata, just take it out of there.
And
those projects.
And
yeah.
I at this
And
stage is wanting out, so.
Yeah. So whatever projects that was, we just scratch those.
Go ahead.
So to the chair, to be clear, this isn't a removal of service. This is not adding the new service. We're not decreasing a service level from last year. We're not adding. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
you're not increasing the service levels or doing those extras.
So that was I, E, and F. Take those out.
E and F, correct. Unless there's someone, I can see the folks back online. Wonderful. Director Bob Quain had a hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
That's a leftover? No problem.
Okay, are we good with that one
I
then?
think we're okay there now.
Cleveland age friendly. Okay.
Removed. Unless someone's opposed to that, I'm gonna leave that one go. Okay,
Okay. Emergency management program, purchase of sand, $15,000.
oh, this was the sandbag stuff, right? It's something with it.
Yeah, well, we can get the sandbags, we just can't get the sand. We have to pay for that ourselves.
As silly as it sounds, it's now something we gotta do, so, okay.
Okay. Large item pickup for Apex.
This one she wants.
Parks facilities labor change in seasonal position. So this is where we have 4 students and we want to shift that to 2 seasonals.
Okay. Unless anybody's wanting to not wanting that change, but I'll go to Director Monteith. You had a question?
Yeah, to the chair. I'm not sure what we're getting for that. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Woods, is that you again?
This, yeah, this is one that I mentioned at our first meeting is really an FTE discussion. It's an operational line as well, but we moved it over here. So we had students that come back. We're finding that we think it's more efficient to have a full-time equivalent position work a longer term than have 3 students work, which works out to be, we only get really good 2 months out of them by the time they show up from school and then need to get back. So we have a $40,000 budget to fund those students. By having a full-time equivalent work for the majority of the year, it's 80. So we're supplementing the operational line by $40,000 to have that FTE work for
So it's
it's an additional 40.
Okay.
So that's why it came in under a supplemental increase because it's really bumping it up within our line.
All right. I'll go to Director Roberts and then Director Conans.
Thank you to the chair. And are these types of positions, like the student positions, able to, look at grants as well? Or is it just because they're now employees, it's different?
No, they're more operational. These are the folks that are out in the vehicles, moving around from park space to park space and facility.
Boots on the ground.
Yeah, boots on the ground. Yeah.
Okay, Director Conans and then Director Monteith.
Yes, through the chair, I would like, if possible, to see these positions start working on trails within the city of Penticton. If we're going to be paying for trail work, I'd like that to start, and I'd like to have support for that.
You may want to check with your own administration on that first.
I did.
So we can work with them and see what that would look like. Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Director Monteith.
To the chair, I'm still not sure what I'm going to be getting for $8,000 for clean recreation for service.
Well, this is access to employees to come and work in the park, in your parks, and as well as a trail that goes through the community. So the workload, it's just accomplishing the workload that comes up. So we've got a couple projects coming into your area that are updating some of the amenities. Every time we add, there's just an additional amount of work to do. So what we do is go back to the Parks Department and say, what do you need moving forward? Yesterday we talked about we're going to possibly look at building a new parking lot as a capital project. So just prepping and getting ready for all that work. So we have Mr. Shuttleworth as Parks Manager looking at his workload related to each of the functions. And this is his ask to have additional hours so he's able to have, as we say, boots on the ground within the communities when we need them. And as we said before, this is us saying we are hearing from the community. They want us out there ensuring these facilities are up to speed. We want to make sure they're safe as well. So we're sensing from our teams that we need more hours to be out there doing that work. So we're suggesting this is a way to do that. If that's not something that we want to do now, we just back off in certain areas. We just don't go out to some of those locations. As the CEO said, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it at 100%. We need to make sure it's safe and enjoyable. So as you know, it's this balance of as we add amenities and into the community, we want to make sure we're able to be there.
Okay. Director Weeb.
Through the chair, and again, just clarifying, new to this process. So you mentioned that it was a student or students being for this position. So is this an additional ask to make it a full-time, like, is it that budget item or that used to be budgeted plus this? Or is it a change of, basically a change of line item? So it's a
plus.
It's just a plus. Yeah.
So
Just
it's
in
this-
addition to
it's
that same
this
line.
plus
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, without this, we'll carry on and we'll probably stick with getting students to do the work. But again, that's one of those things where when you have students, you now need oversight. So operational, they're thinking it's easier just to have a paid person who typically we see them come back year after year for that season.
Having had summer students, they're
It's
great.
just a change in
but-
philosophy of how we'll do it. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Director Roberts and then Monteith.
Thank you, the chair. Yeah, I'm in agreement, but I have a question, like, for instance, like with Area B, is this stuff that also when you create a role like this, but you're gonna also blend, like you got usage time of an FTE that maybe works at the recreational facility in Karamias in regards to minimizing your travel times, because you've already got staffing in our neck of the woods. So to keep costs down, is that something that is a part of that philosophy? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. It's one of just the nature of the job for us with 11,000 square kilometers. If we are able to, or the reverse of that is if we have a big job going on in that location, we can deploy resources out to help. And sometimes that's the case. We're working on the Similkameen Rail Trail Bridge right now. We had that resource over doing some work for the Trails program. So we're able to, move the lines around. That's why there's generally a fairly long list of potential budget codes. And then we time track our staff and monitor that throughout the year.
To get the actuals.
The actuals. Yeah.
Director Monteith.
And to the chair, as we talked yesterday, I am going to move the parking lot project forward, so I don't believe I need to participate with this. So I'd like to be out of this one.
Make a note on that. Aye. No other hands? Oh, am I missing one? Director
Thanks.
Gettins, sorry.
I think for me too, just again, it's just already looking at this as adding on to the budget that is already presented and same as before. It's just trying to keep it smaller so we can keep tax increases reasonable. So I'd like to be removed as well, please. Because again, this isn't taking away from what was happened last year. It's not adding more for this year. Thanks.
Okay. Go ahead, Director Roberts.
Thank you to the chair. I understand the concerns there, and I'm trying to keep my tax base down as well. And I think there's a balance between creating and maintaining momentum as well during these period of times, and it's whether or not we can find other ways in our budgets, whether or not it's gas tax or it's doing things within our rural projects to adjust some of these things, because, again, sometimes once we start losing that momentum, it's harder to pick up and ends up costing more in the long run. That's just an opinion, but I just thought food for thought.
Okay. Seeing no other hands, there is one. Director Federico.
Thank you, through the chair. Is this for just one summer position? That's
Go ahead.
Right now, we have 3 summer students. This is proposing that we would have one recurring seasonal labor, which is an expanded block of time. So it's almost double the amount of time in a full-time person. So it's just, again, a change in philosophy, going away from having students with requires oversight, extra vehicles, to one individual that we move around as part of that team.
Okay, go ahead.
sorry. Can I also be removed then from the Naramata Cemetery, please?
Okay. Director Holmes?
Just a general question. When we're considering these new positions, do we think about in the current labor market the capability of filling some of these positions? And when you're looking at full-time or permanent or summer students, and supplementary to that question, I guess, what happens to the money that was requisitioned and budgeted for previously for wages that haven't been spent because positions have gone unfilled?
Yeah, so that always just goes into surplus and is addressed the next year.
Okay. And
the first question?
What was that one?
Given the current climate and difficulty it is to recruit positions, how do we look at, so when we're looking at creating a permanent position versus something like hiring students, do we take that into account when we're creating new positions?
Yeah, it really is depending on what type of position it is. So I'm not sure that these ones would be the hard to recruit type of positions.
No.
So.
Go ahead, Director Gettins.
Yeah, thanks. Following up on what you're asking, Dr. Holmes. So if we have a position that goes unfulfilled and it goes into surplus, is that earmarked then for that position, or does it go back just to general surplus? Whereas I think with capital, if it goes into surplus, like if we do a carry forward, it's committed to the capital project we've agreed to. But if we've agreed to a position and we can't fill it and it goes into operational surplus, is that just general operational surplus, or is it tied to that position we couldn't fill?
It would be returned to those specific services that were charged for initially.
Okay, so it'd be general operations then.
No, it would be those specific services that were those ratepayers paid.
Those ones there that you see on the screen, it would go back to all of those.
As what though? Like just back into the
Exactly
operation
that
reserves?
percentage, yeah.
Into the operation reserves, okay.
Okay. Moving on.
We had one late request, Mr. Chair. So this came in just this week from the Okanagan Smilkameen Search and Rescue Society. That's that group of 3 search and rescue groups. So Penticton Search and Rescue, Oliver, Soyuz, and what's the third one? Is it Princeton? Yeah. So it used to be 4, it used to be a Karamias, but they've dissolved. So their area is now covered by the 3 remaining. So currently we give them, we've been granting them $65,000 a year, and that hasn't increased, I don't think, for a while. So they have sent us a letter asking if we would provide $71,500, which is an increase of the 6,500. So that's not in the budget. We didn't put it on any of your slides because we didn't have the letter till this week.
Okay. Thoughts on that, Director Weeb?
So just a quick question. Would that be something that would be expected of all to pay, or just those of us that might qualify, like that it would be a region specific?
No,
That comes out of our emergency management program, which is everybody.
Regional, so everybody pays on this one.
And I mean, as an area that doesn't have search and rescue, I could see that, you know, that they've taken on that responsibility for the rest of us that don't have it. I could speak in favor of this, but given that everybody's on the hook to pay for it, I'd like to hear what, supporter
others
might
may
not have
say.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, hands from Director Fedrigo.
I know that the search and rescue has been really responsive and great assistance to our fire department in areas that they haven't been able to reach. So I'd be in support of this.
Director Holmes?
Yeah, I think if you're being rescued, they don't ask which area you come from. So I support it.
Yeah, a lot of times they're not from our area either. So, all right. It's looking like we'll keep that on
Okay, so
at this
that in.
point.
Okay. All right, so that gets us through the grants, the program changes, and the supplemental requests. So a good start to the day. The next one's capital, and that's probably going to take some time. There's a lot of projects, and Mr. Safino is going to take you through those. Did you want to take a break first, Mr. Chair, or keep on going?
Unless I'm not seeing any heads nodding, yes, they need to have a break, but let's keep going then.
Okay.
You can get up and fill a coffee or get a drink as needed, so don't feel shy about getting up to get something. So let's move on. Mr. Zafino.
Pardon me? So the managers usually will come up and discuss their requests as they come up. However, the fire department, what I understand and talk to the chiefs, is they talk to the individual directors, and the individual directors are aware of these projects. So with the first one, it starts with the fire department for Anacus Mountain. They asked for $100,000. They do have, anything that is in the capital project has a source of funding, and the funding is identified. We double check to make sure that all of the services or capital projects that are requested have funding amounts. If they don't, you'll see debenture, which is borrowing. And then that's something that the manager would have discussed, or the fire chief would have discussed with the director. So as stated, Anacus Mountain is first, 100,000 for vehicle purchase, and they do have the reserves to fund 100% of the vehicle.
And I'm comfortable with that. It's from my area, so going ahead. Next.
Next one is a fire protection, KMES B&G. There's a total of 383,000 included in that is 300,000 for land acquisition, and it's earmarked with borrowing. So that's something that would have been discussed with the three directors.
Am I missing a hand from Director Bush?
Yes, so I think we want to move the capital expenditure land acquisition till next year, and capital satellite hall location.
Did you catch that?
It's a building study area.
I gotcha. Okay, thank you. I see he's making notes there. Director Roberts?
Thank you to the chair. And again, I talked with Mr. Safino. It was inappropriately marked down as satellite hall. It was, as Director Bush was stating, it was part of the study in regards to land acquisition. And again, we've all discussed, moving the land acquisition further on into next year. But we needed clarity on that it's not for a satellite hall.
Okay. Good.
Thank you. Next one is Coleman to fire protection. They're asking for 371,000. The funding is capital reserves and gas tax funding. 136,710, sorry. And the funding is capital and gas tax. And gas tax, as a lot of you know, 2022 is the first year that gas tax could be used for fire departments.
Yes. I'm looking to Director Coyne for a thumbs up or thumbs down on that. Thumbs up. So.
Next is the fire protection Kaleden, asking for 371,000. The majority is capital reserves, 358,000, and operating reserve, 13,000. And the single biggest purchase is the pumper truck.
Thumbs up from Director Monteith. Good.
Maramata Fire Protection, 289,951. Finance from capital, operating, and there is a borrowing component for the fire hall construction.
You're okay with that? Or?
No, we're gonna delay the borrowing on the construction of the fire hall to next year.
Okay. He's making a note of that.
Thank you. Okanagan Falls Fire Protection, asking for $330,000. Capital reserves is funding $326,000. The money is there. Single biggest ask would be fire hall construction, and it's a carry forward from 2022 to 2023.
You're okay with that, Director Taylor?
For now, yeah. We're in discussion, so.
Okay.
Willowbrook Fire Department, it's a carry forward of $350,000 for upgrade for the fire hall and gas tax funding 100%.
Thumbs up from Director Knodel. Perfect. Good.
Apex Fire Protection, $3,022,000. That all of it is a carry forward from 2022 to 2023, funded from borrowing, and the funds have been received.
Okay, and just thumbs up there.
The next sections are utilities, and I'll ask the manager for the utilities to come up and speak to them.
Well, let's just carry on, Jim. Just somebody has a question, I'm sure we can go into it.
Okay, so the next section is the water system for Maramata, total of $659,000, funded 485 from capital reserve, 73 from the operating reserve, and development cost charges 100,000. The biggest single project is 200,000 for PRV replacement.
You're
Pressure
okay.
reducing valve.
Yeah, pressure.
Sorry.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to instead of the acronym,
Sorry.
say the word so we know what it is, but I'm seeing a nod of head yes from Director Federico, so good there.
Want to do this as I go?
Yeah.
Next one.
Okay, so next is water system Millbrook, 348,000, gas tax. Gas tax is funding 287,000 of this and operational 10,000. There is a $50,000 component for the water main replacement.
Director Knodel is thumbs up, good. Move on.
Water system Okanagan Falls, 2,092,000. Capital reserve is 321,000. Operational 31,000. There's a grant for 1.2 million. And this Okanagan Falls is the new service that regional district will be taking over as of January 1st.
So this is the old OFID.
Correct.
Okay. Thumbs up there, Director Taylor? Yes. Go ahead. Next one.
Missoula Water System, 272,000, mainly funded from 219,000 for a grant, and that's for the water treatment and intake upgrade. There is a $47,000 in borrowing required for that.
Director Coyne, is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Thumbs up. Good. Next.
West Bench Water System, there's a SCADA upgrade that we need for $7,500, and it's being funded from capital reserves.
Director Gettins is a thumbs up. Good.
Walla Water System, $91,500. $54,000 is being funded from gas tax, and that's for critical updates for the service valves. And there's a component in there also financed from operating, and again, that's $91,500.
Okay. Director Roberts is thumbs up. Good.
Water system Falder, asking for $85,000, $60,000 is from gas tax, $25,000 is operational. Biggest project is the procedure for uranium procedure, and that's a carry forward project.
Director Gettins is a thumbs up or?
Yeah, carry forward came from last year's.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good to go.
Sewage disposal, Okanagan Falls, asking for $120,000. It's being funded completely by gas tax. There are two carry forward projects, and that's the lift station and the master sewer plan, which is also carry forward.
Okay. Director Taylor's nodding yes at this time. So good to go.
General government equipment purchases, there's a ask for a utility pickup truck for $60,000, and it's being funded from the equipment replacement fund.
Okay, so this one's general government, which is all. Unless someone has a question, go ahead, Director Weeb.
Through the chair, just a simple question. Is there a reason we always buy trucks? I haven't been on the budget, over the last 8 years, but I have trucks keep showing up, and I'm just wondering, do we need trucks? Or would an SUV or something else work? I'm just asking a question.
I don't know in this situation, but go ahead.
Yeah, the trucks are necessary for a lot of the work. We do have a couple with canopies, but most of the time, if they're carrying ladders, pipes, various pieces of equipment, SUV just won't cut it. Not quite.
Okay. I'm not seeing any hands from online, so at the moment, it looks like that one's okay.
Next is rural projects. This is VEX Area H. It's $86,000 for Chain Lake Dam upgrade design, and it's a carry forward from this year.
I see Director Coyne's nodding. He's okay with it. Not happy, but okay with it. Go ahead.
This next one is for solid waste, and it's a refuse disposal. It's Penticton, Campbell Mountain Area D. The ask is 1.8 million, and it's being funded by capital reserve 269,000, operational 9,000, a grant 1.2 million, and there's a OK Falls closure reserves 42,000, and the capital closure reserve 355,000. Biggest single ask here, it would be it's a carry forward project, completion of master plan design and update.
Okay. Not seeing any hands up on this one. Just letting
Carry
everybody
forward,
know
isn't it?
that it's coming, so.
All those projects carry forward?
Yeah. Yes, it's carry forward.
Yeah, we approved these last year. Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
so when I say carry forward, they've been approved.
from
they still-
last year's
Yes.
budget that we just didn't get done.
This has to be part of the budget just so that it's, can be expended and funded, so the board still has to approve carry forwards.
Yeah. So it's not hitting our taxes or anything at this stage. Most-
Just to remind everyone, anything to do with capital does not directly affect taxes. It's indirect. When you look at the operational side, there would be a transfer to reserves, which then ultimately funds these projects.
Yeah. Okay, next one.
Next is refuse disposal, KMES area B and G. The ask is 82,000, 25,000 is funding from capital reserve, 12,000 from operating, and there's 19,000 recoverable and gas tax 25,000.
Okay, Director Roberts, go ahead.
Thank you to the chair. My question would be that, is it possible, especially when we look at the 19,350, is part of the closure plan, and I know that I've allocated money in gas tax for the closure plan. Is it something possible that gas tax would take care of the 19,350 as well? Or is this an ongoing?
So it would be qualified for gas tax, so that can be changed to gas tax funding.
I guess, within discussion with the other directors, I know that I have a substantial amount of gas tax money that was set back for the last 4 years for this closure plan. And I know that I don't know about the well-being of the others, but I'm willing to have that discussion. So whether or not we keep it for now and then kind of move on.
Okay, go ahead, Director, or Mr. Safino.
I love the promotion, though. Thank you. So with the transfer to gas tax, it is a little bit complicated because there is a municipality involved and they would have to use their gas tax
as well.
So that's something that
you guys can have a discussion
yes,
on.
It has to have a
of them.
discussion after.
Go ahead, Director Weeb.
I'm comfortable, through the chair, I'm comfortable leaving it as is, and we can, it's not first reading. Now that I understand that today's not first reading, I'm more than comfortable to leave it in, and we can adjust that
if there's a need, it can be adjusted later. So, okay.
Perfect, thank you.
Next one.
Refuse disposal all over Area C. There's a $2.9 million ask. The funding is capital, $1.6 million, operating reserve, $555,000, and grants, $756,000. Single biggest project is a carry forward for compost facility.
Okay, I'm not seeing any issues from Director Martins or Knodel. So, okay, next one.
This is a smaller one. It's Apex Solid Waste Transfer. There's $15,000 for the Apex compactors and SCADA issues, and it's a carry forward from 2022, and it's being funded from operational reserves.
Okay, and thumbs up on that one. So next one.
Can you find this for me?
Yeah, the slides we're off a little bit here.
Oh, I know that.
It's multitasking.
No, I can't. There we go. Okay, so here, take care. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the next one is information services. So this is, the ask is for $828,000. The capital reserve is funding it, and this is one of the areas that ultimately is affected by the administration fee, because the administration fee funds these reserves. So that some of these are carry forwards, so it's not a full $882,000 that's being charged to the admin fee. So there's a lot of major projects here, security panel upgrade for $120,000, networking infrastructure is $100,000. So the funding is $576 from capital and $251,000 for operating reserve.
Okay, Director Gettins.
Yeah, thanks to the chair. I'm just wanted to double check if I'm understanding something correctly. So the information services comes for the administration fee, but some of the budgets also have IT support fee, but not all the budgets have IT support fee. So can I just get some clarity on that, please?
So the administration fee is support costs. There's no wages in the administration fee, where you're talking about is the wages. So there is no wage component in any of the admin fees.
So the IT that you're seeing in the budget is usually then wages?
Correct.
Okay. Good, good info. Next one. I don't see any hands on it, so, oh, Director Monteith, go ahead.
Through the chair, is that the building across from the city hall that we're talking about? Or is that?
It would be here, there, anywhere that requires IT support.
Go ahead.
To follow up, are we not renting the space across from the city hall for a short term? Are we investing in a building we don't own? Is it portable? Like, what is the plan?
Go ahead, Mr. Savino.
This isn't to do invest in the building. It is, we're using COVID funds for 5 years to lease the building. But these are costs to keep the lights on. So it has nothing to do with actually capital construction for the building. Danny could actually give you more information than I can on the ask.
Which one specifically, Director Monteith, were you interested in there?
Sorry, the IT one.
Yeah.
Like it talked about the, was it the control panel or something kind of sparked my interest?
So I'll ask Danny if he can explain.
Yeah, for sure. All these, there's a lot of carry forwards from projects that have already been addressed in previous years. The three new ones are really around, I'll break down in three sections. One is the security panels to upgrade, replace end of life and unify all the security panels for physical access and building control. The other project is called WAN. That's the wide area network. So the infrastructure required to connect all of our 90 plus buildings into some kind of central monitored system. And the third is what's called LAN infrastructure. That's a little, that's kind of the 3 or 4 main buildings here across the street, 101 Martin Community Services area. And a lot of the services that we're actually delivering through the LAN and WAN infrastructure. So when it comes to our security, our AI AI detection for security as well, and we're looking at identity management and also firewall upgrades.
Okay.
So none of that stuff is like can be moved into any building. We just happen to be putting it in the Main Street building right now because we have access to it.
So if we move from there, it comes
just
with
moves
us.
with us. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to know. Was kind of my next question was, can it move when we move? So, perfect. All right, seeing no more hands. Next one.
Next is corporate facilities. So the ask is 414,000. Biggest single project is a carry forward. It's a project to design and acquisition on rentals. So that's a COVID money. We actually received 3 different COVID grants, and this is the third one, which it's defined of where it's supposed to go rather than the first 2 where the board actually chose. The funding is operating 92,000 and 322,000 of that grant.
Okay. We're not seeing any hands there. Looks like everyone's comfortable with that. Go ahead, Director Taylor.
Sorry, is this at all to do with building location? Like OK Falls made a proposal, perhaps pie in the sky.
Space plan,
Yeah.
no.
No, I think this is this building, is it not?
These are actual capital improvements.
Okay. Go ahead.
Next is the Marinata Museum. The ask is for 15,366. It is stating here that the original ask was funding from the operational reserve. So that I would make a recommendation to the board that we change that 15,000 to actual the reserve. We actually have a library reserve that is one of the healthiest reserves in this organization.
Go ahead, Director Fedrigo.
I looked it up.
Can we move money from our library? We can't do that because they're 2 different buildings.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the library one. This is the museum. I jumped the gun. Yes. So museum, it stays operating.
Museum stays operating and you're.
I'd like to defer that a year, please. And yeah.
Will it last a year?
Probably not.
They don't have one. I was chatting with our museum president, and so their concern is on their side of the museum. So I've chatted with them about trying to find grant funding this year, and they were okay holding off for one more year.
All righty.
Okay.
Next is,
They have coats.
we use codes. So the next one is the campground for Loose Bay. The ask is 239,000, and it's a carry forward, and it's funded from grants. That's what that is.
So I see Director Knodel smiling on that, so good.
Rural Projects Area D, the ask is 275,000. There's 93,000 of that is carry forward for the Centennial Park, and there's 175,000 for the Centennial Park washroom. So this 93 is a carry forward, and the 175 is a new ask, funded mostly from gas tax, and 7,500 of that operating reserve.
Okay. Director Taylor's nodding yes.
Rural Projects Area E, the ask is 44,000. Biggest ask is the wayfinding, which is $23,000, funded from operating reserve 6,400, gas tax 327, and there's a grant for 10,000.
Thumbs up. Good to go.
Emergency planning, there is an ask for 61,000. There's hybrid SUV is the ask for, and that's 60,000.
Hey, we're getting away from a truck here. Seeing no hands on that. No, go ahead.
911 emergency call system, the ask is 237,000. The biggest single request would be the Willowbrook 911 tower. It's a carry forward from the 2022 budget. There's 97,000 carry forward telecommunications. The funding is 237,000 is capital reserve.
Okay. Seeing no hands there. Go ahead.
Community Service Area A, the ask is 50,000. It's a carry forward project for the Osoyoos Lake pedestrian corridor repair.
Yeah,
and
I'm good with that one.
Community Parks Area B, 20,488. It's Kobu Park improvement funded from gas tax.
I can't see Director Bush, but he'll
Yeah,
probably yell.
okay.
If,
I'm okay
Good.
for now.
So next one. Thank you, Director Bush.
Next is the Community Parks Area C. The ask is 182,000. The single biggest ask is the Kinsman Park Playground Equipment Replacement, 150,000. It's being funded by 25,000 from Capital Reserve, Operating Reserve, 7,100, and we're looking for a borrowing of 150,000 again for the playground.
Thumbs up from Director Knodel, so good to go. Next one.
Next is the Community Parks Area F, and the ask is 509,000. The biggest single one is Mariposa Park Development Plan, 466,000, funded from capital gas tax. There's 10,000 of the ask is capital, and 27,000 is operating reserve.
Okay, Mr. Woods, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Just some new information, Chair. So as of yesterday, we looked at backing off the scope on that Mariposa project. So if the director is still comfortable, the number we have now is 217,608 for the scope of work for 2023. So we can make that change through Mr. Zafino if the director is comfortable with that.
I see the nod, yes. So,
and I believe the second one we're going to actually strike $10,000. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
The development plan, that is left over, right? Oh, sorry.
Okay, next one.
The next one asks are Oliver Arena Area C. This is a carry forward for the arena rehabilitation project, 1.3 million. The 959,000 is funded from grants, 188 operating reserve, capital reserve, 173,000.
Okay, I see 2 thumbs up, so good to go.
Oliver Area C programs, 75,000. It's a recreation master plan, which is being funded from capital reserves.
I can't, another thumbs up, so good to go.
Continuing with the Oliver Area C pool, 88,415, carry forward to 50,000 for the interior washroom accessibility and interior lighting, 37,000 funded from capital reserve, 31,000, 50,000 from capital reserve, so altogether 57,000 from operating reserve.
I see a thumbs up. Good to go there.
Oliver Area C Recreation Hall, ask is 284,000. The kitchen renovation is 233,000. 30,000 would be gas tax, 173,000 would be grants, and 30,000 would be donations. I believe this would be contingent on receiving the grant.
I'm seeing some nodding heads, but a hand from Director Johansson. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe Jim, you might want to just check with Carol. I heard that we did not qualify or get that grant, so that may change that line item a little bit.
Thank you.
Okay. Next one.
Next is Recreation Facility Karameas B and G. Karameas / B and G.
Okay.
It's 323,000. The slash will happen at first reading.
No problem.
323,000 is the ask. The biggest single project is the Similkameen exterior landscaping, which is 196,000. Funding is 100,000 for capital. Operating is 10,000. Gas tax 142,000, and the gas tax recoverable from Karameas is separate. So that's 71,000. It's separated just because it's something that their council has to authorize first. So that's something that we have to look at.
Okay. Director Bush has a hand.
Yeah, I think we'll be having discussions on this, so we'll leave it for now. If that's okay with the other two directors.
Thumbs up. Leave her for now.
Thank you. The next one is a pool Karameas, 38,000. Biggest ask is the pool cover, 24,000, and a pool filter, 14,000, funded from capital reserves.
I see nodding heads, so looks good.
Recreation Commission, Okanagan Falls, the ask is 386,000. Biggest single ask is the CPR spit. Okay, just want to make sure
Spit
there was no
armoring.
typo.
What is that?
Spit armoring. You want to see what it is?
Yeah, that's the structure that's down, that the spit that sticks out from the beach, which was
Okay.
the former wharf.
Now that makes sense.
So, yeah.
And the funding is 29,000 for capital reserve. Gas tax is the majority, is 354,000.
Director Taylor is nodding yes, so good.
Tulameen Recreation Commission, ask 101,000. It's a Tulameen Park development. It's a carry forward and it's been funded from gas tax.
Director Coyne is going yep. I thought I read his lips, so good.
Recreation Commission Kaleden, ask is 512,000. The biggest single ask would be the Pioneer Park waterfront development, and that's 65,000. There's a 60,000 carry forward for Pioneer Park septic tank. There's other asks for Pioneer Park. The funding is 51,000 capital, 5,000 operating. The grant is 88,000, and gas tax 366,000.
Okay, Director Monteith.
And to the chair, the parking lot part, the 95,000, we're gonna kick that to the future possibly. I've got plans for that gas tax money for the fire departments. There is a decrease as well projected for the Twin Lakes part. I'd like to reduce that to, I believe Justin said 26,000.
Okay.
And there was one other thing too. The sports court. Was that the consultation for tennis pickleball?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna take that out altogether.
Okay, removed.
Yeah. And then the gas tax money I have plans for moving forward. Thank you.
All right. Notes are taken. Next one.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation near Armada, the ask is 934,000. The biggest single ask is the Wharf Park Acquisition Development, funded from 268,000 borrowing, 147 gas tax. Overall, of the 934, 102,000 is capital reserve, 71,000 operating reserve, borrowing 268, gas tax 360, grants 97,000, and donations 35.
Go ahead, Director Federico.
I'd like to defer our borrowing for a year, please. And then Mark will have to sit and have a meeting and chat.
Go ahead.
So to be clear, you're talking about the 268 borrowing for the Wharf Park Development Project. Okay. Yeah.
We're, sorry, through the chair.
Go ahead.
We're also looking at some grant funding this year as well, so might help offset some stuff, but defer.
Go ahead.
Just to be clear also, that you're looking at changing to 2024 for the full 415,000 or just?
No, just the 268, just the borrowing price.
So reduces the budget by that amount.
Yeah, so maybe I just suggest, yeah, we can meet offline and talk about the scope of work that needs to occur in 2023 and how much money we have for that.
Okay. Next one.
Regional trails, the ask is 590,000. One of the biggest ask would be the Skaha Lake Trestle redeck and rails, 118,000. Another big ask is the purchase of the 3-ton single axle dump truck, and that's 92,000. Total of the 590, 231,000 is funded from capital reserve. The next one is there's a borrowing of 120,000. Gas tax just 8,000. Grants 30,000. Vehicle reserve is 173,000, and the donation account is 20,000.
Okay. Not seeing any hands here. Oh, no. Looks good. What's that? Oh, Director Gettins, go ahead.
Just for clarity, the electric van, we're borrowing to pay for the electric van. We don't have that in reserves? Or am I reading that incorrectly? So electric service van is for 82,000. It's under borrowing for
Which electric is
82,000.
that?
Go ahead, Mr. Safino.
That, when we say borrowing, that would be Municipal Finance Authority, which would be borrowing. Yeah, it'll be a lease to buy.
Thank you.
Okay. Good clarif. Director Weeb.
One other quick question about the 3-ton axle dump truck. Have we ever looked at, because I know, Village Caramias would have one in certain things. I don't imagine there's a huge need for that on an ongoing basis. So I'm wondering if maybe partnership might not be a way forward rather than a capital expense. I'd be more than willing to entertain that. I have to talk to my public works, but I know it's only one area, but I'm just wondering if maybe instead of having capital purchases, we might be able to look at partnerships that may be beneficial to everybody involved. So is that something that we can talk about, or?
Can always talk about it for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other hands. Next one.
That's it for capital.
All right. And good.
So the next section, if what we want to start now, is talking about the operational budget at the program level.
Okay. Where are we at for time-wise? 10:30? Does board need a break, or? A few are saying yes, so let's take a couple minutes, stretch your legs, go to the washrooms, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
That's going fast, but it's going fast.
Yeah, we did that.
Okay, if we can make our way back to our seats, we'll get started here in a moment. Oh, gosh. What's that? Yeah. No, we're just about ready. I can't see anybody online anymore. They must have turned their cameras off. Pardon me? I know it's on. I was giving them a hint. See everybody again. Okay, we should get started. We're into the next section here. Mr. Safino.
So the next appendix, I believe, is this is a program listing of operational costs, and it's Appendix 5. So this is something that we haven't discussed yet. So before I start, this is your operational budget of 162 pages at the program level. What I've done here is I've got all of the different costs showing the 22-23 comparison. It shows where there's an identified the material variance so that you can go back to the original pages eventually and question it, or you may question it now. Just one thing I just need to say is, as of today, this changed because once I post all of the requests, the approvals that the board asked, it's going to change the tax requisitions. It'll change the operating budget. Also, since you've seen this budget, since this budget was produced, I've had the direct meetings with directors, and they've changed their own personal budgets. There's been some staff requests where they've seen some service level changes, not for additional service costs, but just that they see that the cost of living went up or different costs. One area I just want to backtrack is just talk to Bill. Is this a good time to talk about the wages? No. Okay. So with this, the very first section is the sub-regional programs. And as you can see, these are services that you have little to no control over. We're told how much, and we put that as part of the budget. As far as the budget that you're currently looking at, the Okanagan Basin Water Board of those three is the only one that actually gave me their budget. The other two, I have not received it. I put in a cost of living anticipated increase. However, it is something that it's not official, and usually we would get them sometime in December, and I'm hoping to be able to include it at first reading.
Okay. But
I don't control it. I will phone them up and ask when I could get those. So as you can see on this one here, where I'm pointing it is I'm stating that the transfer payments are the reasons that I'm estimating that they're higher. The sub-regional for the RGS, that's it's not very material, but some of these services are so small. A $500 increase from one year to another could easily show a 20%, a 30% increase, yet it's in material and dollars. So do you have any questions? I'll just do it by the program level.
I'm seeing Director Gettins.
I just have a question about the sterile insect release program. I thought we had a presentation last year where they were going to start selling their sterile insects or something, and that they were going to start moving into more of a self-funded model. Am I remembering that correctly?
I don't think they were going self-funded, but they were hoping to increase some revenue or get some revenue, but maybe
Okay.
Director Bush can.
They're
Go ahead.
hoping to get revenue from the provincial government, but, and they're still working on it. But it hasn't, we haven't been confirmed yet.
Okay. CAO?
That was the other part of the discussion they gave to us, is that they need a regulatory change. So that's what Director Bush is referring to, was it's still waiting. Now, we do have Melissa Cash coming early in the new year to present to the board. And I'm sure she'll give us an update on where they are with those changes that had come out of that previous study that they did, which indicated the regulatory change and selling their product.
Okay. Seeing no more hands, move on.
Next section is actually the largest number of services, and that's regional programs. And as you can see, I've got it in yellow, it's 4.75% increase, and once you remove the administration costs, services, it actually goes to 4.84%, well below CPI. And talking to some experts, they're projecting a December CPI of between 7.2 and 7.4%. And that's obviously not for every single services, but that affects everything from gasoline to construction, et cetera. And if you remember one of my slides the workshop one, a $10,000 cost in January is $10,700 in December. So there are the costs on the far right, the percentage on the far right tells you the differences between this year and next year's budget. The next slide also shows you where the different material variances are. And you can see that the Heritage Conservation Fund, there's a slight decrease. So what I looked at is the percentages, and the percentages dictated if I put it the explanation or not. And as I stated, some percentages look material, but not in dollars, just in percentage. The 911, there's an increase. So the fire dispatch went up. There's different adjustments. 75,000 is the biggest single increase, and that's for the contracts for CORD. And that's something, again, that's a contract you have very little control of. I believe that one there, I received some documentation that I need to talk to Mark and Sean about this and see if it can be adjusted. There was something from Kelowna, the regional district.
Okay.
The other one is environmental conservation. No surplus projected in 2022. So in that one there, a portion of the surplus last year was used to keep the tax requisition reasonable. And this year, we're not projecting a surplus to help. The general government, a net increase of 2.61. Salaries and wages is the biggest single increase. And again, when you as a board authorize an FTE in 1 year, it's not the full 100% of their wages that ultimately gets budgeted and taxed so that it's funded, because you don't hire someone on January 1st. The board usually authorizes or adopts the budget in March. And so after March, unless you're asked for an early request, the hiring process starts. So you go March, April, May. So now you're looking at up to 5 or 6 months. So I only budget the 5 months of salaries, but the following year you get the full hit. So that is one of the reasons why it increased. The admin fee went up slightly for $9,600, and the honorariums also went up. And that's just based on the projected increase in the yearly increase in salaries, or honorariums.
Can I go back one there to the environmental conservation? I had noticed that it was increasing or proposed to increase over the next 5 years. And I don't know, we'd kind of always in the past tried to keep it at that 450 and not let it go up, because that's kind of where we were. And I know we went below that a few times, but my preference personally would be keep it at that 450 for the foreseeable future. Maybe if there's a need this year, I can understand if we're behind, but future years. Go ahead.
Not so much, Mr. Chair. The way the service establishment bylaw is written, it says 450 or a percentage of the assessment. So if the board wants to keep it just strictly at the 450, just tell us, and that's what we'll do.
That's what we've kind of discussed in the past, so that's why I'm bringing it up now. If we want to stick with that, let's stick with that rather than
do you want to make
incremental increases all the time. That would be my recommendation. a seconder on that, but go ahead, Mr. Safino.
Just to point out, are you asking for 450 for the transfer, or because there's also staff wages and contract wages that go with that?
Yeah, 450 is the limit.
Okay.
Keep the 450 as the limit is what I would suggest. Director Gettens?
Yeah, I'm open to that as well. The concern about that is that when you're buying land in a market that we're in now and we have to pay market value, and if there's a key piece of land that's available and we don't have enough money, we might kind of get stuck with that as well. So, but I'm in support and I understand that, but I'm just saying that's a risk that we're taking, that we may not be able to have enough to do the buying that we want to do.
We very seldom buy land personally as the regional district. We support other groups who are buying the land, so we may not have the full amount they request. That is a possibility though. Director Holmes?
So this is just for this year. We're not changing the policy on that.
In the budget, the 5-year plan, it's showing an increase every year, and I'm saying keep it at 450 for the foreseeable future and in the 5-year budget is what I'm suggesting. Not increasing unless there's a need to, but generally we've never overextended what we are required, or what is requested is usually not as much as we collect. So we're putting in reserves. Did you have a hand up, Director Conant?
Yeah, and so does Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, I know that it sounds as if we have somewhat of a healthy surplus through the chair in that environmental fund. And I personally don't supporting other groups buying land. I believe in this environmental fund, but I don't agree. I mean, I believe if private organizations want to, and nonprofits or want to buy land for themselves, they can. But I personally don't think that we should be using taxpayer dollars to do that. But I appreciate other environmental projects that are going on, and support most of them except the cat one, I guess, at this point. But so what I'm saying is that do we even need to? I mean, could it be a lot less this year because we have that surplus, and do we want to keep buying land? I guess that's a philosophical question, or support groups buying land and blocking it off in our region.
That's a discussion we'd have to have. Yeah.
The only reason, sorry, as a follow-up, the only reason I'm talking about it right now is why do we need the full 450,000 this year if we have a surplus already through the chair? What's our surplus again?
What is our surplus, Mr. Safino, or what's the reserve there?
As of right now, it's projected to be 750,000.
Yeah.
However, with the 2023 projection, that could go, as the CEO said, $1 million.
Yeah. Okay. I have one online, and then I'll go to Director Knodel, then Director Holmes.
I just want to confirm this is a motion to cap it for the next 5 years, and if so, then I'll second it.
It's been seconded. It's on the floor.
Thank you.
Director Holmes?
Yeah, just saying, if we're making drastic increases or drastic changes to the program, I think we have to go back to all the participants, and I would certainly, our council made a decision to enter this program based on a certain premise, and if we're changing that premise, I think we need to go back to our council, because that's, and buying, I think, well, we have the discussion, but buying land, I think, is an important part of this. It's not as if we're outright buying the land. It's allowing organizations like the Nature's Trust to leverage our contribution to be able to buy it. So
yeah.
But it's a bigger discussion. But
yeah,
thanks.
The motion on the floor isn't changing the premise. Anything about how we spend that money would be potentially, though. Director Gettens?
I was just going to agree with Director Holmes. I think it's a bigger conversation that's strategic. Like, there's a lot that I've learned about this conservation fund that's really amazing. That can only happen if we're all working together on it. But if this is just a decision for today, that's great. But yeah, if we're making a bigger decision, I think we need to get some time to dedicate it to that conversation.
Seeing no more hands, Go ahead, Director Conant.
So this decision we're making right now is to cap it at 450,000. And if I actually don't think we need to have 450,000 in it this year, then I would vote against this, right? Or is something else coming further in the?
Go ahead, CAO.
Well, you could, but if you wanted it less than 450,000, then you should put that motion on the floor.
You could amend the motion to be less if you wanted, but.
Well, I think your motion is separate and distinct, Mr. Chair. You just want us to cap it, the requisition at 450 for the next 5 years. That's fine. If you wanted to reduce the 2023 budget, you should put that motion on the floor.
Make a motion, but let's deal with this one for now. And if you have another one, we can definitely entertain it. Seeing no more discussion, all those, Director Bush, go ahead.
Yeah, so is this a participant vote then?
Oh, I better check with the CAO. I think in committee, it's everybody, but CAO?
This is everybody, and so is the budget.
Yeah.
The budget will be corporate weighted.
Okay, so at this stage, it's everybody. All those in favor of capping it at 450? Hands up. Thank you. Any opposed? One's opposed, so the motion carries at this stage. And do I want to, or do you want to make a motion? Go ahead, Director Conant.
I just want to say that I was, through the chair, in the discussions when we decided to join this together to work on the environment as a region, and I think everybody in our valley approved it except for Osoyoos.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
And the smoke mean.
And the smoke mean. So the only reason I would like to decrease the tax requisition on this only because we have quite a large surplus. And I mean, we can bring it up again next year to see what to see where we're landing. But if we have a surplus, I don't understand why we would go to 450,000, take money from our taxpayers, more money from our taxpayers right now, if that was our intent to spend a maximum of 450.
Okay.
Anyway, so I'll make the motion to lower the tax requisition to basically, I don't understand if they're asking for 200 or 250, I think it was, I'm sorry, the exact amount that she came forward in a presentation. I think that we probably don't need to have any money come from our taxpayers this year for that particular program. So my motion is not to have any requisition this year.
Zero requisition.
Yeah, since we have a $750,000 surplus.
Yeah, okay, there's a motion made, but is there a seconder for that? That's a zero requisition. No, the motion won't make the floor, so. Okay, anything further? Director Weeb?
Just a clarifier so that I'm aware of the terms. My understanding is reserves aren't surplus, they're designated funds. So that would be a change of understanding how reserves and surpluses are. A surplus for me is something that was, budgeted and not needed, and we put that in Karamias, we would put that into reserves. But something that's designated to reserves is a budget line item. Is that correct?
Mr. Safino?
A reserve is there if it's needed, so it stays into the bank account and drawn from if there's commitments made that may happen, and there's some things outstanding that may come to the board, and the board can actually draw from that during the year after the budget's passed.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not seeing any other hands, or go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
Do we have a limit on the reserve for this? Like if we're at 750 now, do we have a limit on that reserve?
No, you can put as much into reserve as you want.
Yeah.
Typically, we follow the Karamias model. We'll take any sort of a surplus from a previous year and put it into reserve until you need it in order to undertake some program that comes to you in the future year.
Okay. Next item on the agenda. Go ahead.
So then just Okay, thank you. So the next section is continuing on the regional programs. I not only identified areas that where there's increases, I also wanted the board to see where there's decreases. And again, it's over 3%. This one here is invasive species, decrease 3.55%. It's only $2,400, but I think that the board just needs to have the information available. The next one is information services. It's an 8.9%. I've itemized the biggest one is the equipment purchases. Costs are going up. We noticed that the utility bills for the phone is increased, so that's another increase. And there's a transfer to capital reserve that we require to fund the capital purchases that
Okay, could we click the screen ahead one, just so for those that are watching?
That information, it's on there. It's a,
okay.
Oh. So there, that's it there. So
Okay.
it's 0600 is the information services. So that's the main reason why it's an 8.9%. And as I stated earlier, you heard that CPI, you're looking at a maximum of probably 7.4. A lot of those increases have to do with that. Regional transit, that's one of those areas where the board has very little say in it, unless you're looking at service level increase or decreases. We're told what the operational expense is, and a lot of that, or some of that, would be the fuel. The destruction of pests, so that's the decrease of 6.2%. Again, 6.2 looks like it's a large amount of money. It's only $300, but I do want to show the board where it is, and the same thing with Summerland. You can see also it's exactly the same amount. So we're consistent, and it shows me that the staff know what they're doing. The next slide, please. So the rural programs, so there's a good number here. This is split up into different areas. So the net increase is the 6.60%. There are some larger ones, 16% for electoral area planning. There's some smaller ones as low as 0.87. And the next page would show where the variances would be. Smaller ones, the bylaw enforcement allocation increased slightly. Some of that is just wages, and the contract for animal control also increased slightly. So it's only, again, 3.8%. Looks large, but if you look at the dollars, they're not. Bylaw enforcement for...
Got a hand here from Director Roberts. Go ahead.
Thanks to the chair. I just actually would have a discussion around rural projects when Jim is finished.
Okay. Go ahead.
Bylaw enforcement, is that where it was?
Yes.
Scared me. Bylaw enforcement, net increase, again, just over 4%. However, that is a bigger budget, and the salaries in the wages increased by 100,000. That's one of those FTEs, I believe, that is now the full year that you're paying for. Electoral area admin, net increase, 7.7. Again, it's the salaries that increased it. Electoral area planning, net increase, and that's a big one, 16.03%. Salaries is the biggest single increase, but the consultant costs also went up by $50,000, the projection for the 2023. The mosquito control, helicopter spraying is the biggest reason why it went up, is $10,000. And the development infrastructure net decrease, which is good to see. Salaries dropped there by $44,000. So that was really a redistribution from one wages charged from one service to another, just correction. And going on programs is shared programs for A/Osuyas. I made the slash on this one.
Good.
And anyone I missed, I will correct by the first reading. So this one's a little bit larger, 13.4%. The increases is for the big, okay, here they are. So the museum property debt increased. So that one there is just an adjustment. The debt service level was refinanced, so interest rates would have been higher than when the refinancing. Oh, okay. Okay, so go ahead. The Osuyas one, the salaries is $10,000. The biggest single increase for the arena is we bought a Zamboni and we had to borrow it. Next, please. So we'll just discuss the ones where you do have discretion. That some of these already changed at your discretion already. So shared programs, BG, and slash Karameas. So 10.34%. You can see the different changes, and the next stage says where here they are, fire protection. And as you can see, honorarium increase. So that's something that I'm sure the directors talked to the chief, because that's the numbers that we received. And the transfer from to operating reserve. So that's something that it would have also come from the fire chief. I'll try to look up as I'm talking so that I don't miss anything. Recreation facilities, Karameas slash areas B and G, the salaries was an increase, and that's because of it goes from a partial year this year to a full year next year. Transfer to capital reserve, so that's to fund future capital purchases that are on the capital list. And finally, the pool is a slight increase, 2.17, and wages and salaries and wages.
Okay. Oh, a question from Director Weeb. Go ahead.
Through the chair, just so that I'm familiar, or as you mentioned, the way that the salaries kind of work a little differently. So this 29,561 is not part of that FTE.
No.
So this is an increase without that FTE request.
So the FTE request was made for the 2022 budget. So what happens is, an example for the 2023, the ones that you've said yes to and ultimately make it to the budget for a final approval, you're going to see the salaries for 6 months in the budget, because we're not going to hire someone January 1st. But next year, it's the full year. And then you're going to see something on there similar that says salary increase by that 6 months that wasn't there the previous year.
Okay. Got that.
Okay, so this one here is Area B, G, H, and it's shared programs for economic development and recycling. So this is two separate ones. It's just trying to make it more efficient in one area. A very little increase for the economic development for BGH, and the recycling program is 3.5%. And the increase is information service cost reallocation of $3,200 is the reason why the recycling went up. And what we're doing is each year we get better and better at looking at the services for IT and comparing the service to the cost.
Okay.
And you've got a really good IT manager that's checking, making sure that it's correct. And this is just, I think, another correction. Next, please.
Oh, Spencer had a hand up. Director Coyne, did you have a hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that because it's only a 0.01% increase. I don't know. Does that include the increase that we agreed on at the SBPS, guys?
I can't answer that, but
Which guys are you referring to?
that's B and G. B and G, I'm assuming. So,
Bob
NH.
and George and Tim.
Oh, that's the Nelkamine guys.
Yeah.
It actually looks less, because I thought we had an increase to meet the requirements. This is closer to the original, just 8,000 each.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about.
They'll have to look at that, or you'll have to encourage to look at that.
When
Go
you
ahead,
say
Director.
you agreed at the
CAO and then-
SBPS, so what did you agree on?
Director Coyne? What was agreed on at the SVPS that should have went in CAO?
I don't know what their portion is supposed to be. That's why I just know there was an increase this year. I just get a bill. I just pay it.
Okay.
They don't look at the bylaws, so.
Did you take minutes of those meetings, or is there?
I wasn't at it, but I know George and Tim and I think were there, so.
Okay, I'll go to Director Roberts here and see if he can remember or has something to say anyway.
We just said that the town of Princeton would pay for it all.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently you send them a bill.
Yeah. No, okay, it'll be looked into, or you'll remember it in the future. Okay. Are we done this section?
I'll follow up, make sure that I got whatever they.
Thank you to the chair.
Go ahead.
I wanted to get back to it. And again, it was tied to rural programs, and I wanted to let Jim kind of go through everything. I've historically, in the last 4 years, had kind of an issue in regards to how things get stated in the budget under rural projects, and I wanted to have a better understanding. So for instance, we recently got the functional report in regards to managers. It was tied to yesterday's information package, and it had like rural programs under community services. And then I've found many times, like in my own budget breakdown for Area G and the area rural projects, what I have say for, certain names, whether or not it would be tied to a parks or it's tied to something else that would just be somebody's cost under rural projects. And my understanding of our rules and regulations should be that it's tied to a service. So for instance, I've had individuals in there under rural projects that weren't parks or weren't rec or weren't something. And when I look under rural projects, of course, we've got building inspections and all that. So I get a little confused. I'm assuming that under rural projects, it should be just in regards to the services that each one of us have. And then the entitlement to staff costs, et cetera, should be tied to those said services rather than sometimes just put under as nebulously rural projects. And I just need some help in understanding that because it seems to be a little messy because at times I'm not quite sure who I'm paying for and why.
CAO?
So a project has a definite beginning, definite end. So like a one-time sort of a deal. If it's ongoing, that's when we start getting concerned. And we'll tell you that you should, if you want to keep it going from year to year to year to year, you should ask your citizens if they want to pay for it. And that's when we go out and create a service. If it's just a one-shot thing, that can fit into our rural project.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and to follow up. So that would mean, so for instance, under rural projects, I had a project that Public Services assisted me with. So then wouldn't it be in my rural projects as payment towards that department versus just being staff allocation under rural projects? I'm just wondering.
You're talking about your Headley cleanup? Yeah, they would just bill their time to that rural projects cost center.
Okay.
What, that doesn't work for you?
I think it becomes confusing as the rural projects shouldn't really be staff time. It should be projects.
Or if it just that it would be itemized as that project or that department versus just, it says staff time and that's just a number, which I know intuitively because I've had these discussions, but on regards to paper, it's not usually itemized out. It's just this staff under rural projects.
If you budget for a Headley cleanup within rural projects, that's where all the costs of that are going to go.
Yeah.
I think he's asking though, rather than it say staff time, it should just say Headley cleanup.
Oh, sure.
So then it's clear to everybody what's being paid for in there in the future. Director Yettins?
Thanks to the chair. We don't have a policy for our rural projects budget that I'm aware of.
It's more regulatory. So that the local government act says if you want to provide a service to your citizens, you got to ask them if they want to pay for it. Mm-hmm. If it's just a one-time deal, it can be lumped under rural projects. If you want to put policy around it, that's fair.
I think just as a follow-up, I think it would be good to have some sort of a policy because rural projects in my mind is always something that's sort of under the director's preview, but then you don't always know what's getting added to your rural projects or what's not. Like there's no way of looping you in throughout the year or when there's new information involved. So I wouldn't mind having a discussion about how it works and when staff make that decision and that kind of thing. I think it'd be helpful. It might help answer some of Director Roberts' questions as well.
Okay. All right.
Sure.
We'll have a look at that. That's a future issue or discussion. Next one.
So the next one is shared programs, areas C/Oliver. The net is 4.57%. You'll see a lot of these shared services is the Oliver Arena, Oliver Recreation, etc. And there's some increases and decreases, and this is the budget that we get from the Oliver Parks and Rec Society. And with that, I still show the different variances, 4.57, and as you can see, the increases for operations went up 29,000. Transfers to reserves, which is going to fund essentially capital down the road, if not this year. The Oliver, the park section, slight increase in administration fee, and that's right across the board with everyone. Operations, 62,000, that's their budget again, and this is something that would have come to us from the Parks and Rec area. So that's something, if there's any questions there, I would have to take them and ask the Parks and Rec Society, answer questions.
I'm not seeing any hands from Director Knodel or Johansson.
Next.
Director Knodel does have a hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, on the previous slide, the economic development, we're having a discussion on that one on Monday in regards to that. I'm looking at reducing that budget substantially.
Okay, but that'll remain to be seen, I guess, after your discussion. So.
Correct.
Okay.
The next one. Next, shared services, DE, F, and I. This is a large increase, 14.06, and the largest ones are the victim services and also the refuse disposal and refuse disposal, just to let everyone know, that's Campbell Mountain, and that would be user fees, not a taxation, but it's still on here, so I feel the board needs to see it. Mm-hmm. And the sections are the transfers from operational reserves reduced in budget, so that increased the tax requisition, and contracts and agreement. Doesn't look like a lot, but it's $500. It doesn't take much for a small service like that to look like, wow, 11.36 is material, but not in dollars. So that's when you take a look at the overall tax requisition. In these cases, the D, E, F, and I, using a weighted average for all of them, maybe 25,000 would be a 1% increase, tax increase.
Okay.
So the refuse disposal, that is, you can see the increase is 48,000. Contract services, so there they are. Mr. Reader is here to answer questions if you have questions in here. So the total net cost increase is 15.9%, but there are some decreases in the transfers to the various reserves.
Director Bloomfield.
Thank you, and yeah, Mr. Reader, I see that there's a heavy increase in consultants. But is consultants, is that an operating expense?
Go ahead.
Through the chair, this is really our composting project. That's all it is. And what we're proposing is actually a $10 increase in per ton in fees. There are actually, most of the items that we've got listed here, none of them are taxation. So what we're looking at is some decreases and increases with some of the things. So we've been able to reduce some things such as our transfer to reserves because we've met some of the conditions required for an impairment reserve, and because we built that reserve up enough. And then other things that we've got, so increases like for the wood chipping, that's just actual costs that have occurred because of increases in fuel.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, but the consultants, what's the...
We have to, our next phase is to design the 1313 grayback composting, and it's grant funded. So this is actually funded by a grant.
Okay.
Yeah. We have that grant already, correct?
We have the grant, we don't have the LC.
The approval to do it, but yes, we do have the grant. Okay. Did I see another hand here? No, Mr. Zaffino, go ahead.
This is a good time to bring up because of this account. We had a meeting, staff had a meeting with our insurance agent, and just so everyone know, property insurance is going to increase 20%. This is one of the only accounts where it's going to decrease just because of the impairment reserve. We are meeting the standard now, so we can drop the insurance on that materially. but everywhere else, you're going to see a increase. Staff estimated an increase.
20%?
Staff did not estimate 20%, staff being me, but.
The insurance companies are saying that.
Yes. So
Okay.
so that will change pretty well all the budgets.
All right.
So the next 9 pages are the electoral areas. It's specific to each one of the directors. This one here is electoral area A. I've had some meetings with some of you. I have not had it with the director here. However, the ones I had the meetings, the changes, as I stated, aren't shown here, but they will be shown at first reading. So in this case here, as it stands, electoral area A is 11.6%, and the changes as I identified them are the Anacus Fire Department. They're asking for a 14% increase, so that's one of the biggest increases that results in A. The community parks that's a huge increase, and a lot of that to reduce the tax requisition because of COVID. That COVID isn't there anymore, so that's a hit. The museum, so that's to eliminate prior year deficit. Now, it looks like $2,000 isn't a lot, but it's 11%. So slowly, we've had a deficit in electoral area for the museum, and this eliminates it with 2023 budget. Refuse disposal, the service is terminated, so that's a decrease. The grant and aid, there's a net increase. However, there is a decrease in the budget of $1,000, but yet there's a big increase. So it says transfer from reserves. When you do a from, that's a revenue that's no longer there. So that 36% is actually equates to $1,000. And in area A, it would be about 29,000 would be a 1% increase.
Okay.
Or decrease.
No.
I'm just wondering, Mr. Chair, maybe we just scroll through the electoral areas, and if the director wants to talk to the board about some specific program, we can just raise it then.
Go ahead, Director Roberts. Thank you to the chair. And I know this was brought up in regards to electoral area A, but it's also in a lot of all our areas in regards to fire departments and the increases that we're seeing in first responders. Due to the inability at a lot of times for BC Ambulance to do pre-hospital in a timely fashion. Now, my question is, as we move forward, especially for an area like Area BG and the village of Karamias, the first responder program is new to take in some of this necessity in covering the needs of our community and pre-hospital care. Is this a item in the fire departments that could be in these increases that are affecting us all, that can be recouped to the province in regards to their necessity to cover pre-hospital care?
CAO?
I don't believe there's any program that would allow us to, you're talking about invoicing the province for work. I don't believe so, Mr. Chair. I know we've tried it before on vehicle accidents on the highway, responding out into the highway. And we've tried the insurance companies. We've pretty well beat that one to death.
Yeah.
Either we chose to do it or we don't. We don't have to do it.
Yeah, that's what it kind of boils down to. But Director Gettens.
Yeah, thanks for the chair. I actually like going through each page of each area because and I like to hear Jim talk about it because it helps me think about my area in a different way. So I know it's just the 9 of us, but if we could just not speed through this part, I would appreciate that too.
Okay. We're into Area B at the moment. Go ahead.
Area B, 16.71%, and the areas that had the increase is the salaries, which for Area A community parks, and the park improvements is $4,000. So on some of these, I have talked to some of the directors on how to save and finance using gas tax, and I will talk to the ones I haven't seen yet to reduce your tax requisition on that. Electoral Area B, rural projects, that is a decrease in surplus funding. So it's only $293, but it's 4%. But so I didn't just look at the dollars. I wanted to show you the percentage part. Local programs, Area C, the net is 2.2%, reasonable when you're looking at a 7% plus the CPI. So with the variances there, however, there are some for the water system, Gallagher Lake, 5.25%, and the differences are the transfer to reserves and salaries. Grant and aid that's been net increase 79%, and that 79% is $5,400. And untidy premises there's a slight decrease and for $7,900, so the decrease is 6.85, and that helped Area C reduce the net impact to as little as 2.2%. The local area programs for D, I did it as a subtotal. As you can see, it shows 84%. However, once you take out the new services for the Okanagan Falls Irrigation District, it's actually 9.57%. And this is a worst case scenario, just so that Director and I haven't talked about looking at where there can be cuts, but there can be.
Okay.
So the local programs, the variances for D is the fire protection, that's 9.57%, recreation, OK Falls, that's 11.49, and the transfer to reserves and the park improvements are the two hits. Transit, there's not much we can do, that's outside the scope. Sewage disposal, OK Falls, net increase 4.29, and it's itemized there, what the effects are for the increase. Economic development, there's an anticipated increase there, but that's something that we're having a meeting with the director, just wants to set up a meeting with me, so that may change. And the electoral area D rural projects, that's also an increase of $15,300. Area E, 11.16%. The increases are as follows. The fire protection is 8.71%. The cemetery is 7.9%. Naramata Museum, 4.79. Not very much dollars for the museum. However, it is almost $700. Parks and Recreation, that's the biggest single increase, and that's 30.89%. And that's the breakdown of where those decreases or increases are. And again, we're having meetings with the director, wants to have meetings with me on that, so that may change. Local area E, a net program. Transit continuation on need. Transit, there's not much we can do. Transit's a fairly new service for West Bench, and BC Transit consolidated West Bench, Naramata, and OK Falls in one invoice. And that's a challenge to try to go and break it up. I've been having meetings with them and to see if they can give me 3 different invoices. I haven't had any success yet. Noise bylaw, that's a net increase, 32%. 32% sounds like it's a lot of money, but it's just like a few hundred dollars. Electoral area E rural projects, 15%, which is only $2,000. Local programs for F, net is 9.07. So on here, what I did is I took out the Sage Mesa because essentially that's recoverable, because Sage Mesa, there's major capital operational costs in there to upgrade. So that's a 31%, but once you take that out, because it's not a hit on the taxpayer, but it is a user fee recoveries, it's 9.07%. And again, one of the biggest increases is the fire protection. The contract with the city of Penticton increased materially in 2022, and it's anticipated that there's going to be a larger increase, and that 10.74% also looks at the deficit. There's going to be one of the few accounts that does have a deficit. However, that's one of the areas where we don't have very much control on. Parks area F, Parks Commission, 22%, and that's the transfer to operational reserve. So that's something area F may want to look at. It's a decrease. Transit West Bench, again, that's no control. It's where we're told. I not happy with the way BC Transit is invoicing us, but they have the authority and power. Water system folder, a slight increase, $1,600, and that's operations. And again, that's something that the manager requested. Water system, Sage Mesa. So you'll see a huge increase, as I stated, that is recoverable. So we're going to just do a bill and recover it. Electoral area F rural projects, there is an increase in the budget there from salaries and wages went up $11,000. Area G, net increase 4.76%. The increases are as such 9,000. Cemetery for Area G is $2,000 increase. These have changed and they will change slightly after I talk to the director.
Okay, Director Roberts has a question or comment. Go ahead.
Thank you to the chair. Jim, I'm wondering, there's two lines in regards to cemetery here. I know what we've talked about in regards to the amount of the cemetery service that I've started, but I'm wondering, is the initial one that has been taken off as a negative 49.99%, is that when I was tied to that letter patent and that we stopped that and then we've created our own service?
Correct. So just continuing with G, the heritage for Area G, to eliminate deficit of $429. The electrical system, that is power, and a lot of the electrical utilities or street lights, et cetera, they've gone up because the cost of power went up. And their Area G street lighting, that's what I've just stated. Olala water, net increase. And it's the IT support for Olala went up $5,000, operations and salaries and wages. And again, salaries and wages, as I stated earlier, because it's only 6 months, 1 year, you're paying the full year the next. Area H, the net 3.86, and the biggest areas of increases is the fire department, 7.1%, honorariums, vehicle expense, and salaries. The salaries would be staff salaries at the regional district office. Tulameen Recreation Commission went up materially. So the transfer to capital reserves increase in the budget. So we have to have a transfer in the operational side to fund the capital. So that's a big increase. Noise bylaw, unofficially the service isn't there anymore. And unsightly is a net decrease. Again, legal fees, there was an anticipated legal cost that was there in this year's budget, but not there, so that we dropped it. And finally, electoral area I, net increase 10.9%. This is before the adjustments were made. There was some material changes as of yesterday, which will change that percentage by 2 to 3%. Changes are on here. The reason there's an increase is Recreation Commission. Recreation Commission, yes, for Kaleden, increase in transfers to reserves increased. That's the one that there was a change, I believe. Yes, that materially. Salaries, as stated before, and insurance property. So this is one of the areas I anticipated going up, but not 20%. So this is going to go up more. Grant and aids, prior year surplus decreased in budget by $1,000. That's so that was a hit. And electoral area I rural projects, 13.49. Salaries again, fire protection, Apex 3.39, and the last one.
Okay.
Come on, Wayne. I need to see this. Thank you. I needed to see that. Just so. Any questions? I make myself available to all of you at any time. I can't have 2 meetings at the same time. It doesn't work. But I will come to you to make it easier.
Not seeing any hands from anyone. Oh, missing Director Gettens. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. When do you need, I'm just curious about when the CFO needs our changes by to see it in the first reading?
So I sent out an email yesterday to the managers. Any changes made by Monday 4:30 will make it to the first reading. I have to have everything ready for you by December 20th. And if you remember, I don't have it here. It's that 1,074 pages takes time. So if it doesn't make it by first reading, it will make it by the second reading. But if you sooner you get it to me, the better chance there is of making it to the first reading.
Okay, go ahead, Director Taylor.
So when you say Monday, you're talking the next working day?
Next Monday?
Correct.
Third.
Sorry, yeah, next Monday.
That's the first round of changes. It's after you see the first draft of the budget that people go, oh, I got to make changes. Or look for opportunities to make changes. Go ahead, Jim.
Also, I've been asked by a director, and you can get some information. Each one of your tax requisitions will show the cost for an average house, so that the difference between this year and next year. So that's something that I can add. Because we're using an in-house program, the changes is doable.
Okay, Director Holmes?
What's an average house in the whole RDOS?
Well, first of all, it's going to be by area. So yours will be different than the electoral A, for instance. A's got the record, and I don't know if it's theirs is probably about $1 million for an average house, where in Naramata is even higher. But each one of yours, it's calculated by BC assessment. So we put in the BC assessment numbers, and the program automatically tells it. So it will, on your tax requisition, it will show you what your average house is. Using I still have the 2022 assessments. I don't have the 2023 assessments yet. So by second reading, that will change. By the time we get the second reading, we will have that. So it's not something that staff is just going to guesstimate. It's going to be actual. It's defendable. So also, I will have the actual growth rate, non-market growth rate for each of your areas. Your CFOs for the municipal side will have it also. We'll have the same number. But up until I came here, the non-market growth wasn't used here. So whenever someone said your tax requisition was, let's say, 5%, and your growth was 2%, you're actually overstating your tax. It's actually 3%. And that's how municipalities do it, as you would know, Mayor or Director.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody, or? Seeing none. That completes the program for the day. Wow. We're ahead of schedule. But that does give you an idea where most are sitting at.
I bid on Jim first.
Yeah, you might have a busy afternoon yet, Mr. Safino. Okay. Not seeing any more discussion. Any hands? Well, thank you, everybody, for your attendance. Did I miss someone? No. Oh.
I just was trying to get his attention.
All right. Well, thanks, Mr. Safino and CAO. We'll call it a day.
Thank you.
Yeah, lunch is here. We were going to have it because we were going to be here, so we might as well stay and eat it now.